If you'd like to contact the show, send us an email at liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com or get involved in the conversation on social media. Join the Pearl Jam Podcast community group on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at liveonfourlegspod.
We stayed at this little Howard Johnson's that now has turned into something much more colorful. And the van was just about to leave, and we had 15 minutes. And it was the All-Star break, so there wasn't a game here. There was no way I could get in. There was no way to buy a ticket. There was no, well, except unless you climbed a fence. So, climbed a fence. There was a bunch of people in there. I hid behind a few boxes and crates, waited till they walked by, ran through some corridors, up some stairs, and then came out right over there and took these pictures, because I couldn't believe I was at Fenway Park. I had to get in to fucking Fenway Park. I had to. It was a life's dream then, and I guess the point is, so if you go from that 25 years ago to where we're sitting right now with all you people there, it's just a mind blowing. We can't thank you enough. It's not lost on us, and we're so appreciative. And away we go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Fucking camera in the truck. Mr. Boom Gasper. You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
Hey everybody now, welcome to Live on Four Legs, the definitive live Pearl Jam podcast, and we continue on another week in our little series that's talking about shows that both John and I have gone to. And we did two of John's a couple weeks ago, and then in the beginning of February, we actually did one where we were both at in Nashville, but now this is going to be the last episode of this little mini-series, and we're going to get to a show. It's Fenway Park 2016, the first night. Now, this has come up on the podcast before, and kind of in a negative connotation because I've always wanted to stray away from this one. This is not me at my best at a Pearl Jam show. It's not, it's a little embarrassing. I've grown to just kind of laugh about it over time, but it's not my favorite story to tell, and you'll know why when I get to telling it. But if you've been following this podcast or you've been following on social media for a while, you know that I've told this story in pieces before, but now today we're going to get the whole thing of Fenway in 2016. And hey, Fenway Park, the band is going back to Fenway Park this year in September. It seems to be an August-September kind of thing, so a little bit of preparation for that in like 6 months or so. So why don't we get into it? Randy Sobel over here. John Farrar is over there.
Hello.
Hey, Johnny Guitar Farrar.
I heard that.
Was that insulting to you, or was that kind of, was it a term of endearment?
You know, I was a bass player, so I think you're giving me more credit than I deserve.
Well, you did bring out the ukulele for that Zoom, so
True.
It just doesn't rhyme with the whole
four,
scheme.
Four strings, though. 4 strings. I can only handle 4 at a time.
I mean, you could do like how they do Presidents in the United States of America.
True.
That they rip off the first 2 strings.
Rock the git bass, whatever that guy had. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you excited about this one today? You kind of have been in with me when talking about this before, and I think by now you kind of know the whole situation.
I do. And I'm proud of you for stepping up, and we're gonna absolve some demons here tonight. But
I'm going to flip that, you guys, because he said he was proud of me. That is the first time in Live on Four Legs history that that's ever been said.
I'm sure this brought up some mixed feelings for you. So I mean, I don't wanna spoil anything. We'll let you tell the story. But yeah, I pretty much know what happened, but we'll get into it, and we're gonna do some confessional today and pray to the Pearl Jam gods for redemption.
Oh, we already had a religious episode this year. I don't want to do that again.
True. True.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Story from the first ever Fenway show. Was really excited for this. And in this year, I went to both the Madison Square Garden shows and then had tickets for the Fenway shows. And what was really fun about this was that it wasn't like the first trip that Jillian and I took together. We've been to a couple places already, but this was something that we had been planning from very, very early on. And we had started dating back in September of the previous year in 2015. So this was kind of like really close to our 1 year anniversary. So, she had moved in by this point and she has almost nothing to do with night one, but she was there for night two. And actually, if you go back to the week on our wedding week, I don't remember what number episode it is, but we together did the second Fenway night from 2016 because we had the experiences there. We recorded a podcast together and it was right before our wedding. So if anybody wants to go listen to that, that's available for you. Yeah, I just kind of remember we got into Boston. We kind of spent a nice day outside. It was really, really nice out. A little hot, but still nice to be in the park. And we walked around a park for a little bit. I'm sure we got food somewhere because that's usually what we do. I'm sure we got a snack somewhere because that's usually what we do. And I think we were staying right alongside of Chinatown in Boston, if I'm not mistaken. I remember there being like an overpass with some Chinese writings on it and stuff like that. So I think we were staying really close to there. Now, Jillian only wanted to go to one night, so she elected to go to night two because my brother happened to be in town. My brother is a golf writer. At the time, I don't remember where he was writing for. He's been at ESPN, he's been at Golf Channel, and a couple other places here and there. It was one of the two of those, I'm guessing, but there was a tour that was happening, I want to say in probably Rhode Island or something like that, that he figured, why don't I cover this? That way I can kind of split the time and go to the show with you. I'm like, yeah, actually, that's great. So my brother Jason, this was his second Pearl Jam show. He actually has a story about the first time he was supposed to go see Pearl Jam. He had tickets to Lollapalooza at Jones Beach in 1992, and there were two dates where they were playing Jones Beach. One of them got played. I believe night one got played, and then the other one was rained out, and they never made it up. So that was the one that he had tickets to. So he went to Madison Square Garden in 2010 with me. That show, yep, night two. And then he's going to this, and he's expressed interest in going to the Fenway show this year as well. I'll be at night one, so we'll see if this all kind of occurs again. I hope not. I will make sure it does not. But here we go. All right, so I hop in an Uber, and the address that I get is kind of hard to find. I remember the Uber driver like passing it because neither of us really knew. It was a small building, and I was just told that we were going to a bar. That's it. Yeah, come meet up at a friend's bar. But it happened to be like a little country club almost. Like it was a racquetball club, and I remember I went inside. I'm looking around. I'm like, it looks like a rec room, like a gymnasium, and there doesn't look to be any bar in sight. And I remember walking around for a couple of minutes, like, where the hell is this bar? And then somebody directed me towards it, and it was this very, very small bar that could have doubled up as like the pro shop or something like that. It's a small club, and my brother's friend who was there. My brother went to Brandeis and has a bunch of friends still in the Boston area. So we always, whenever we're there, always catch up with some of those guys. So one of his friends is a lawyer, I guess, played racquetball at that place, and we met up with him. His name is Matt. And we just kind of went for it. We had a good time. I guess that around the time that I got there was maybe around 6. Could have been 6:30. I'm not sure. But drinks were on the table. We just kept drinking, and I was in one of those moods where I was feeling good. And you know what? I'll take another drink. You know what? I'll take another drink. Sure. Why not? Going to a concert tonight. Why not? I don't usually drink too much before shows. It's just not something that I care to do. But this time, I don't know. The atmosphere kind of felt like, yeah, I could have a drink or two. So I remember like little things, like one of the other guys that was hanging out there, I think they were all trying to get tickets. They were all trying to get secondhand tickets. And I don't think that ever came to fruition. Of course, with an hour before the show happening, probably not going to happen unless you have some real connections there, which I'm sure maybe Matt did. I have no idea, but they didn't get in. And I remember somebody was really fascinated by the fact that I've been to all these Pearl Jam shows, and he's like, rattle them off. I want to know every place that you went to. And I remember like going through my head, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this all in order because this is just how I do things. I'm linear like that. And then I realized I'm like, oh, the number's wrong. And I totally forgot Wrigley in 2013. And I'm like, oh, that's the one that if you want to have a conversation, let's talk. So time goes by, and I think it gets to be around like 7:15, 7:30. So I'm saying to my brother, like, look, I think we can go. And I think there was a moment where it's like, one more. I was like, yeah, why the hell not? One more. And usually Pearl Jam is very, very well known for taking the stage fashionably late as possible. So I think, and I'm pretty sure that I said that. I'm like, yeah, like we can have one more because I don't expect them to go on directly at 7:30. And I didn't go back and check what the time was when they went on, but it was light out for at least the first 8 or 9 songs. It was definitely like light out and prominently light out. So I remember going to the bathroom, and then it's like, okay, let's hit the road. We start walking, and just walking along, and it wasn't that far of a walk. It was, I don't know, like a 10-minute, 15-minute walk or something like that. And I'll kind of walk you through all of it as the episode goes on as well. And I remember just hearing Elderly Woman, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Another bar has it. Maybe they have a rooftop party or something like that. They're playing it loud. And my brother's like, oh, I don't think that's no bar. That's a stadium. And my heart sunk into my chest. I'm like, what the fuck? We're missing this? Really? I said to stay for one more drink and I get burned by that? I swore to God that we wouldn't miss anything. I thought that they were going to go on at like 7:53 because that's just what they do. They just don't ever take the stage on time. But that night, they happened to take the stage really fucking early. And I just kind of remember just walking there and being like, no. Where we were when we heard Elderly Woman, I think was far enough where the music was traveling. But once we got closer and in certain spots, it kind of got hard to hear in little places. So once we get into the set list, I'll go through a little bit of what that experience was and what I was walking through and what I was hearing and stuff like that and what I missed. So yeah, I completely missed the release in Long Road Open. And that is the first time and the last time that I will ever miss the beginning of a Pearl Jam show. I night 2, I remember talking to Jillian. I'm like, we got to get in immediately. And we did. And we got in, we hung out for a little bit. We got pictures by the monster and everything like that, where it said Pearl Jam and everything. And of course, for that show, they don't start until like way later than they started the previous night. It was like probably almost 8 that they started that. So of course we're waiting around and I'm like, come on, we're here. We came here early for a reason. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And of course that night was the fashionably late night. I don't know what the hell was in the water, the dirty water, so to speak, that they were just like, fuck it, let's take the stage. It was a 2 hour, 45-minute show. So there wasn't anything like extra. The speeches were what they were, and they were long in some retrospects, but it definitely was not reaching the limits of a crazy time Pearl Jam show. I'm sure there was a curfew and everything like that, and maybe they were just really cognizant about hitting it at that point, but it just hurt.
Yeah, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes there, and I'm picturing like the sinking feeling, the realization that like, oh wait, we missed something. Because like you never want to miss anything, right? That's why you go to these shows, because you never know what you're gonna get. And like that realization that you've missed something must have been like, oh, like yeah, I mean, yeah, of course you make that promise to yourself, like, yeah, never ever again.
Well, what's interesting is that at the time, I wasn't using Live Footsteps. I didn't know Live Footsteps at the time, unfortunately, because they were around. Dave was around. But I only used Stat Tracker, and Stat Tracker wasn't doing live updates like that. So I had
Hmm.
no in the know on anything. And it wasn't until, like, to me, it could have been, I'm sure I thought for some of the time that Small Town was the opener. And it wasn't until later that I'll get into the story a little more, but somebody had the set list, like a picture of the set list in the crowd. And I asked him, can I see the first 2 songs and that's it? And I saw him and thought to myself, like, okay, Release. I see Release all the time. That's fine. Long Road, motherfucker. That one hurt.
Yeah.
My brother was the opposite. He really wanted to see Release and probably doesn't know Long Road as well.
Yeah, it's just that I mean like I said, I can picture that sinking feeling and being like, oh my God, and like were you just like running at that point, like we gotta get to our seats as soon as possible?
Um, we weren't running, but we were fast. It was a fast pace. Like, okay, don't
Yeah.
stop to tie your shoes or anything like that. And I'll get more into that. I kind of want to tell the story with this as the set
Hmm.
goes by because I'm going to do something a little unique here as we go through this. Now, everybody kind of knows the format of the show. If it's your first time listening, then we go through pretty much every song in the set and we get to talk about the music and story behind it. But for this, I am going to abstain from any musical or performance opinion from the open until about the 8th song in, because that's all the time that it took to really get situated. I will tell my side of the story. I will narrate the thing, but if you want to know what happened musically, rely on John for this one, not me.
We're all gonna be living it through you as it happens.
Right. Okay. Well, what better time to start than now, I suppose. Yeah, so Release, then Long Road. The only thing I'll say here, and this is really, I got nothing because I didn't even know that these were the first 2 until way later in the night. So just in terms of the narration part, at the beginning, Ed saying, "Yeah, we heard there'd be people here tonight. We're in church," and he'll say later in the show, he'll talk about how important Fenway Park was to him and how it's one of MLB's cathedrals and it's such an important place for rich history that you come out there for the first time and you see all those fans and you're like, okay, yeah, this is something special. Let's go tear it up tonight.
Yeah, and remember too, like I mean, we've kind of grown more accustomed to these stadium shows, but this was only the second ballpark show ever. I mean, they were going back to Wrigley a couple weeks later, but this is the first one since Wrigley 2013. Safeco hadn't happened yet, home shows, all that. They're finally going back, this year after 6 years. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, the ballpark thing was kind of new. People didn't really know what to expect after, what had happened at Wrigley with the delay and everything. That was such a unique night. I think a lot of people were wondering, like, oh, how is this going to work? I mean, obviously, it was an evening with Pearl Jam, no opener, things like that. But I think being there for the first time, you can tell that I think especially during release, Ed is just soaking it in completely, just looking out at everything, just letting it wash over him. He's really just in his element at the show early on.
One thing I'll say about Long Road, and it has nothing to do with the performance, of course, because I can't talk about that, but why it sounded so sad when I just talked about it a minute or two ago was because this to date, I had only seen it one other time in Hartford, but this to date is the last show that I attended that it was played at. So that hurts a lot, you guys.
How
Yeah.
many shows is that? That's got to be close to 20 now, right? 15?
Probably actually 10 because I'm at
10? Okay.
29 and that was 18, so 11.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But with some of these songs coming up, like the one to be pissed about is All Those Yesterdays.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I had already seen it in Brooklyn, talked about Brooklyn last week. And then I kind of had a redemption because I love All Those Yesterdays. It's a top 3 song off of my favorite record. It's one of my favorites. And I saw it in Toronto 2 years ago. So I had a little bit of redemption on that. This year is going to be my long road redemption, folks. That's what I'm looking forward to the
Yeah.
most.
This is super unique too because I think we just talked about this is the only time they've ever opened with a release into Long Road
Yes.
as the first 2 songs of the night. And in my opinion, it's one of the best parts of the night. I mean, I know that hurts to hear, but I thought as good as release was, and as just epic an opening as that is at a ballpark, I thought Long Road was just as good. Had all the emotional weight that you want, and Stone was like giving it all that room to breathe. It was a fantastic version.
Going back to a little narration here. Ed says, I want to get a good look at you all before the sun goes down. And I don't know the details about how it all happened, but look at us. We're all at center field at Fenway Park. And the next section, what they did with both shows was they did a little bit of an extended slow burn into 5 songs, and I believe it was either 4 or 5 the next night as well. So this little section is Small Town, Low Light, and All Those Yesterdays. And you obviously mentioned what happened during Small Town. That's the reveal of it all. And I hear Low Light, and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I like Low Light. I'll see it again. I've seen it before. That's fine. Cool. And then All Those Yesterdays happen, and I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me, right? All Those Yesterdays, and I'm missing that? Like, that hurt. That hurt. And I think if you add Given a Fly to this equation too, my mind is clearly still at this point and still until I actually get the performance is saying I need Brandon J. So to get 3 yield within the first 6 song of the night does not bode well for my chances of Brandon J, especially because they've already played one of the rarest ones off the album. So I'm just thinking to myself like, all right, well, I better not try and predict anything else or try to hope for anything else. And just hopefully they have more tricks up their sleeve, which thankfully they did.
And like obviously, baseball is going to be a big theme on this night. So during Small Town, of course, he does the whole thing. Oh, glad I saw this place. Thank you all for taking us. The first time in this, like you said, cathedral of a stadium. But I was waiting for the big hello to hear it on the crowd. And it doesn't seem like it was a big moment here. I mean, I'm going to chalk that up to you not being there. That the crowd didn't feel like a big factor in this. Maybe I needed your voice on it, but felt like Ed tried to get the crowd going at the end, like his voice was cracking a little bit, maybe feeling some effects of something. But yeah, I felt like he was wanting a little bit more out of this crowd. And maybe you can probably speak to that a little bit more once we get into the part where you're in your seat.
Yeah. Now, I've kind of sat in all different places when being at Fenway. And on the second night, I was on the field somewhere, probably around shortstop, I would assume. Or
Now,
I
have you
can't.
been there for a game before? Have you seen a Red Sox
Oh,
game
yeah.
there? Okay.
Yeah. I don't love watching games there. It's
Yeah.
terrible sight views. It really is. So being on the field, I remember it being a little bit tough because it's just very open and you don't have any projection coming from that area of the crowd.
So maybe
That was tough.
he wasn't hearing the crowd like he normally does. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like things were a little distant. And look, I've been to Fenway 4 times. I've only done Wrigley once, and that was a sight to behold in itself. And I can't quite remember what the sound was like. And I think, from my perspective, everything was great no matter what. But yeah, I kind of remember when we were in the crowd for 2018. I remember being able to hear people and people being on top of it and all. But small town early on, like that's the one where you want everybody to participate, everybody to get going. It's a little tough when that doesn't happen in such a big place, but I think that's kind of one of the downfalls of playing there is that you lose some of the intimacy for sure.
Yeah, and being the first show there, there's going to be some hiccups probably with the sound. I mean, I'm sure they did a sound check, but you never really know until you get in there with everybody in the building.
I'm going to mention another baseball thing. I know it's narration only, but all those yesterdays, all those double plays, changed, and then he looks out to the flags at the top of the suites. Those are all either the AL Championship seasons or the World Series seasons. Let's get into Given a Fly, Mind Your Manners, and Why Go Here. Now, here's the really interesting thing. I remember just walking around and trying to get there and everything. And I remember saying to my brother, like, fuck, we're missing the show. And we could hear stuff. Not great in some places, as I mentioned. And my brother kind of said a line that at least gave me some comfort at the time. He's like, what are you talking about? We're here. This is the show. So,
no, yeah. Where are you? Where are you at this point?
At the point of Given a Fly, I'm very, very close to walking into the stadium. I think
when he sings "Made It to the Ballpark," he's talking to you.
Maybe. Didn't think about it in that aspect, but I seem to remember that we were in by Mind Your Manners, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, maybe that was a longer walk than I thought it was, but some of these songs, they're pretty quick pop songs kind of deal. So I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I think we're scanning tickets by Mind Your Manners. And I remember running through the concourse during Go. I really had to go to the bathroom again. I think that I go to the bathroom a couple times at the show, if I'm not mistaken, which goes along with the whole drinking thing. It's a factor that you just can't change on that. So, but yeah, why go? I was running to the bathroom, and I think by the tail end of that, I was at least right next to my seat. So, from here on forward, I can talk about the show now.
There's another moment in Mind Your Manners, when he usually throws it to the crowd to go, Mind Your Manners. And he gets nothing. Like, you can't hear anything. I was like, that's weird. And maybe it's just the boot or maybe it's the building, but another instance where it didn't feel like he was getting the energy back from the crowd that he normally gets. And I'm not shitting on this crowd. Like, I get it that there's other factors at play, and there are going to be some moments later where you do get to hear him, but it was just odd to hear it from a listening aspect, to not hear those moments on a soundboard bootleg.
All right, I'm going to talk here. It says, we've done quiet stuff, we've done loud stuff. How's everybody think it's sounding out there? Well, you have John's opinion, so there you go. It's great up here, so no problems there. Obviously built great for baseball, but damn it, it sounds great up here. I'm a Cubs fan, and they're in the National League, so... And he's hearing some boos, because the boos are raining down on this, and he's like, whoa, wait a second. You're booing the fucking Cubs? How quickly you forget the feeling. Can't you be nice to your fellow sufferer? And maybe this crowd was clairvoyant enough to say, you're getting one in a couple months, shut up. But now comes a little political jab after that, because he's like, well, now that you have more rings on your fingers than Trump has balls, he's thrown that in there, and he'll apologize for that a little bit later, which was unfortunate, but I get why. He follows up that and says, the Cubs may have as many rings as Trump has balls. You always had a favorite team in both leagues, and mine was the Red Sox, and this field in particular. And he shouts out a couple guys. You know, it seemed genuine. It really did. Like, I'm sure Mariners fans out there are like, what the fuck? Are we chopped liver?
Mm-hmm.
But
White Sox fans, yeah.
Mentioned some center fielders here: Fred Lynn, Reggie White, Darrell Evans, Coco Crisp. Says it's a great honor being here and looking back at all of you. So we got daughter going into even flow. I did a little bit of research. We get a double tag on this of WMA and Brick in the Wall. And it seemed rare to me that those two tags would be back to back a whole lot in their catalog. If you go really early, if you go 1995, there were a bunch that happened then. But as you go on through the years, this was the first time they had done it since Edmonton in 2011. Then before that was Madrid in 2007. Before that was Bristow in 2003. Before that was Salzburg in 2000. Then Randall's Island. So there's this like almost 3, 4, 5 year window where they busted out. And I thought that that was interesting because outside of It's Okay, those are the two you recognize as being the daughter tags.
Right. And the crowd gets some credit. You definitely hear him on Another Brick in the Wall. You know, that's the one that everybody sings anyway, regardless of what they're actually going to do. That's the one that people go for. But this version of Daughter is super fast and like felt a little jittery too. Like it was unsettling a little bit. It was that fast. It had a weird vibe to it, I thought.
Yeah, very speedy, especially on the tag. They just zoom through Another Brick in the Wall. And
Jeff's
usually
doing the WMA bass line on the stand-up bass too. It sounded weird.
Yeah, usually with Another Brick in the Wall, you kind of want to build that moment and kind of have the crowd project. But yeah, I thought that was a little bit weird. Yeah, we do get Ed saying, people leave your guns at home. So a little bit of a message there as well. And then in between the two songs, Ed sees a helicopter from above and says, everybody wave to the chopper. And everybody in the video, they all go back and wave to the helicopter. So there you go. All right. Even Flow really is one of McCready's first big moments. I know Why Go is in there too, but like it finally feels like you're getting Mike McCready, and he's giving you all that he's got from the second that the solo hits. When the solo hits, his guitar's behind his back, and he makes his way down and goes to the rail and starts playing in front of the people. And it seemed like as much as Ed's really excited for this, Mike gets excited for stuff like this too. It really feels like he knows the weight of being at the venue and he feels the big crowds. And it's not like Jeff and Stone don't, but I think they're a little bit more stoic when it comes to that. Like they're excited, but I think that they kind of hone it in a little bit more. Mike and Ed are more of the expressive ones.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the rhythm section's always going to be a little bit cooler, going to be able to handle that. And the front man and the lead guitar player, they have to be a little more flamboyant, a little more boisterous to get the crowd going. That's kind of the dynamic of how a lot of bands work. But yeah, I thought this Even Flow solo, so many times we talk about how, you know, Mike was, he turned on the Hendrix or turned on the Eddie Van Halen and like got all flashy with it. But this one, he really doesn't do that. He's just wailing, just letting that thing ring out and just putting everything he's got into those notes. You could really tell that he was really trying to do something special here and really going for it.
Yeah, and then you have Ed throwing the microphone into the crowd, encouraging the crowd to sing along. Like everybody, they are having a great time and they want to celebrate this throughout the whole entire night. So yeah, fun things happen at this show, and that's definitely one of them. Here's something that's not so fun, is getting into a song and realizing that, no, that's not the right spot for the song. Grievance is played, a little bit of a false start, and that causes Ed to give a little bit of shout out to Cameron as they kind of ease their way into Faithful here, and Grievance would actually follow that. So he's kind of turning Faithful in. I think the idea here was because, of course, Red Sox Nation, the Red Sox Faithful have always been called that. So he's turning this into kind of honoring David Ortiz, who was retiring that year. And if you've seen some of these shots in the video, there's actually a Dunkin' Donuts sign with that lettering that says David Ortiz. And I think that's the ultimate compliment of somebody in Boston to get that. They love them. And he was really important for the town. We all kind of remember when the Boston Marathon happened and he came on that field and talked to everybody in the crowd and Boston Strong and everything like that. Like, he's an important figure there and important for those World Series teams too. So yeah, giving him a little shout out was nothing bad about that. Faithful, I have a memory on. So remember before you said something about like, oh, you weren't there and you could have been singing loud on this and that could have helped, right?
Yep.
So Faithful, I was singing very loud on. I was into it because think about it. I had only been in my seat for 2 songs at that point. So I want.
And you got another Yield song. You didn't think you were getting any more, but you got another one.
And there's going to be another one in a little bit as well.
Yep.
So I start to sing Faithful, and Faithful's not a song that in a ballpark everybody's going to be singing along with, because that's the thing about ballpark shows sometimes is that it can have more of a balance of people that love spectacle, people that are more casual, and then hardcore fans, and they're all dispersed in all different places where you don't really know what you're getting. And I guess our area felt mostly like they were on the casual side than on the hardcore extreme fan side. So I'm singing Faithful, and my brother tells me, you gotta stop singing. And I'm like, you're a fucking asshole. Nobody tells me to stop singing. Not even the people on the live feed, when I'm recording a live feed, tells me to stop singing. I sing louder at that point. I said straight up right there, like, this is my favorite band, I'm gonna do what I want. I don't know if he talks to me for the next 10 minutes or so, but
You were disturbing the locals.
I mean, my brother in general, it doesn't matter if I'm disturbing my brother, he's going to say something about it, especially to me. But I think the thing that's interesting to me is that Faithful spent a lot of time on the sidelines after that. And Grievance, too. Grievance has not been back since this show. So these kind of back-to-back were signaling close to the end. And now Faithful, of course, came back in little spurts, but 2018 it wasn't anywhere to be found in about 24, 25 shows.
Well, I think I have a theory as to why, and that I think maybe the Grievance false start there, I think threw them off a little bit. This is not a tight version of Faithful. It almost falls apart in the middle right before they go into the riffy part in the bridge. You can tell that like they are hanging on this by a thread, and like it could have easily been abandoned. Like, it's very, very messy, and I know like it is what it is, and like, you know, you take what you get, and that's just how band music is sometimes. But I think Ed makes a note of that when it happens. He's hesitant to go back to it for a while if he notices that a song is like that. And Grievance, especially too, was very sloppy. I thought he remembers those things when a performance is not up to their standards. And he's hesitant to go back to it for a while. And in this case, they haven't come back to Grievance at all.
Yeah, that's ultimately it's sad. Nothing you could really do about changing their mind except for, hey, call in the Tent Club and say, we want Grievance. And we want a lot of things. I put it out on social media. I put it out on Twitter. Like, Grievance has not been played since this show. To me, that's a problem because they should bring it back. And this I thought this version ripped. I liked it. I didn't really feel any of the sloppiness in it. They tore through it like they always do, and yeah, that's the song. But I guess from that standpoint, if Ed did notice that little things were wrong with it, then of course he's going to put that on the sideline in favor of another song that they know by heart. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, just a theory.
Ed says, now I feel bad, and I should have brought up that name that I brought up earlier. I just wanted to apologize. I don't want to do anything to divide people, and that's what makes it so frustrating to see everything that goes on these days. This was the beginning of that, mind you. Ed did not know what we all know now.
Little did he know he would reference him in a song in a few years.
Right.
Make its way into a lyric.
Well, one of the things that I think I got to bring up here is that nobody in the right mind, except for supporters of him, thought that it was even possible.
Oh, yeah. There are some shows from back in the spring where he talked about people just thought it was a joke. People, you joked about it because that'll never happen.
Right. Yeah. And we were all shocked, of course, at the outcome of that. And it wasn't the last time that his name got mentioned at a show. And I think it was London where there was a big balloon baby Trump out there with like a diaper or something like that. So, yeah, obviously he's got to make a comment on that. But yeah, it was a completely different time. That's 2 election cycles ago. Completely different time in our country, guys.
It was really interesting to hear him just kind of bare his heart like that and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Like, I shouldn't have done that. That's not what we're about.
We're here and we're safe tonight. That will get you into I Am Mine and down. And I Am Mine being right here, I wonder if that was sort of mentally planned in his head that if he was going to apologize anywhere, it was before I Am Mine. Because that's the kind of song it's about, like individual self-respect and everything like that. So I wonder if that was kind of planned to attach it there. And you could tell during this performance, like Ed turns from the happy-go-lucky kid that's playing in a ballpark to serious and focused and determined. And you see his face and you can tell like he's not fucking around with this one. And it's a pretty fast, riffy performance of I Am Mine. And you know what? The power kind of shows that.
And how about getting a binaural song followed up by a Riot Act song, followed up by a Riot Act B-side song at a ballpark like this? That's insane on paper.
Yeah, I don't expect that to happen this year, but I've seen crazier things, so I guess.
Yeah.
So Down, of course, is dedicated to Howard Zinn because it's a guarantee. Anytime you go to Boston, Ed's going to bring up, hey, we're thinking about Howard Zinn, one of the most intelligent minds of our generation. And I think every time they've played it in Boston since this song has been around. So you get that. You definitely get that.
The version is cool too. When it gets to the bridge, it's very different sounding. And I can't put my finger on it, but it's a little sparse, a little more staccato. You can hear the acoustic a little more, like almost kind of a folkier sound to the end of Down. It's very interesting. I hadn't heard any versions like this before.
Yeah, I love during this, Ed gets really, really excited to toss it over to McCready for the solo. Like, he's now back to being that kid at the ballpark again. So, real quick, focused up version of I Am Mine, and Down he's back to hanging out and playing around. So, we're going to get a special guest for the next one. We got a guest who called this place home for quite a while. One of those rings we were talking about here before, he's the proud owner of. He used to stand on that mound right there, and he's still standing on the mound, but in a different city. Part of his rehab is playing guitar. He hasn't been back here for a while, so it's a pleasure and a privilege to have him join us, Mr. Bronson Arroyo. And I remember being pretty surprised by this. And first and foremost, baseball and Pearl Jam connect with me, and I think they connect with a lot of people. I think a lot of people that gravitate towards Pearl Jam are baseball fans too. I'm not saying everybody, but there's a lot of connection between the two. And to see somebody like Bronson Arroyo, who I knew played music, I think he was like a country musician for a while or folk musician, and he still is, I'm pretty sure. But that was exciting to me. It was exciting that they had that connection. It was already exciting that we were at the ballpark. And of course, some Red Sox references were going to come up in places. But yeah, to see him come in on the song, and not only that, but man, was he cool as a cucumber. He looked like he had done it before. Like, he just looked like, it's like, yeah, I got this. No problem with that. And sounded pretty good. I mean, you're being thrown into the fire on something that nearly nobody has the opportunity to do. You kind of never see somebody that's really outside of the Pearl Jam world like that. like join in on, especially on a song like Black, because Black is usually, they treat it very, very carefully, and it's usually a song with
reverence. Yeah, they treat it with reverence. It's not just anyone can come up and play on Black. They usually do that for like
Rockin' in the Free World.
cover at the end of the night or
Yeah.
some little one-off thing. But yeah, to be on this song, he's got to have the chops. And like, yeah, I'm with you. I give him a lot of credit. I contrast that with the way that the next Red Sox person is going to act when he comes out a little bit later. But I mean, it's so funny because like he's got the long hair, he looks like a rock star singing along, but he doesn't come out and like steal the spotlight. He just kind of hangs out on Stone's side, which is hilarious because he's 6'4" and Stone is what, like 5'10" on a good day. Looks dwarfs over Stone. But yeah, I mean, he's singing along like he obviously knows the song. He does great on the acoustic guitar. It adds a lot to the song. I mean, if you didn't know, you'd been like, oh, that's Stone, right? I mean, obviously he's got some chops there. I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah, and the other thing about Black is that it's one of their songs that is just unpredictable. That you don't know what direction they're going in. You don't know when Mike is going to cut loose, and you don't know like when changes are going to happen. You don't know when that transition into the ending is going to come up. So
and he stops playing too. He's not playing for the end. He gets through the verses and the chorus. He's like, all right, I'm done. You guys take it.
Oh yeah, he just looks out to the crowd. He's like, yeah, all right, I'm into this, and he takes a swig of wine and everything like that. But yeah, this is really good. I really appreciate the effort that he had on this, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that maybe this was a song that he had played in some of his shows, and that's why he was chosen to do this one. But yeah, definitely a good highlight for this. Just very exciting to see somebody from baseball.
And like Ed asked for all the, by this time it's dark outside, the sun's gone down. So he asked everybody to light it up, show him how magical it can be. Everybody pulls out their phone lights. It looks really, really cool. And then he goes into a little of we belong together. Yeah, this is fantastic.
Do the Evolution Falls, that, and then it's going to be a combo of two covers here that were excellent on this night. So, Masters of War. This was the first time in 200 shows since 2008 that they had played it. Now, being in the crowd, I'm kind of hearing how the thing is developing. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't think that they never do this. I honestly, if you would have asked me, I probably said they wouldn't have done it since the 90s. That it just didn't come up at all during that time period. I thought it was ancient. So I knew, of course, about the version, especially the version of the song, and that jolted some excitement in me. That's like, whoa. Not only are they going into a cover that almost never played, but as opposed to what Ed and Mike did with G.E. Smith on the Bob Dylan tribute show, this is a full band, and this is dark. Mike goes into really fired up, like just electric kind of solos, and it really make a show of this, and it was absolutely captivating. Out of all the covers that you can do, like this would be maybe one that you're not thinking about for the ballpark shows because you're thinking about, oh, it's Baba, it's rocking and all that. But man, it worked in the same kind of way that Immortality works in the ballpark, where it just soars into the atmosphere. And you were able to feel it on this night. It was maybe my top moment.
Yeah, they did this combo in Wrigley a couple weeks later, and I was there, and it blew me away. Yeah, this version is incredible. I mean, the way that he builds up the tension, like kind of restrained with the guitar playing in the intro, mixed with his vocals where he's going forward on the vocal, but the music is restrained. And then every verse, every chorus, the intensity ramps up a little bit, like it builds up a little bit. It gets a little more chaotic until you get to the end when they all just kind of let loose right before the ending and go for it. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, yeah, this is one of the best performances of the night for me too. I thought this was incredible. Just the way that they turned a folk song into this like epic kind of journey through the song. It was unbelievable.
Well, we're not the only two people that thought it was a good moment, because it's time for a Gear Guru segment. Let's get to listen in on Javier. He's going to talk a little bit about the reverse delay effect. So let's hear what he has to say on a wonderful performance.
The worst fear that could ever be heard, the fear to bring children into this world, for threatening our babies, unborn and unnamed. You hate with the blood that runs in your veins.
Hey Randy, hey John, hey everyone on the podcast. So we're going to talk about the Fenway show this week. I know that some of you are going to be revisiting that venue, that amazing ballpark for the tour later in September. So congratulations if you're one of the lucky ones. I'll try to make an attempt to the East Coast run, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So the song that I wanted to talk to you about is Masters of War. Now, in this version, Mike runs a plethora of effects. Like, you can really hear the POG, you can hear the MM4. The MM4 is that blue big pedal that it used to be in the left top corner of his pedal board. But the one that I really wanted to focus on is the delay pedal. And you're like, another delay pedal episode effect sort of thing? No, actually, historically, Mike has been well known to use the delay line 6 DL4 pedal. That's the green one that's on the left corner. Like, that's the one that we have seen in I don't know how many boards, whatever switches that he makes, whatever stuff that he swaps back and forth, that thing is always there. Why? This pedal was introduced in 1999 by the brand Line 6, of course. But the pretty cool thing about this thing is you have 16 vintage delay effects that you can click, and you can kind of like rotate your knob, and then you can save whatever you want. And it has one of the most sought after ones. Like, a few examples, for example, is the Echoplex, is the Space Echo, and the Memory Man. Like, those are the few modes that that thing has. You have seen it in multiple boards across like many guitar players. And this thing has also reverse delay effect, which I'm pretty sure that Mike runs this in the following order. He has an analog delay that is a little darker. Then he has some sort of like ping pong delay that is a little bit more transparent. And then you have the reverse delay that you can hear here and there in the little snippets of this version of Master of War. I thought that was cool because it's a delayed mode that we don't hear very often in a Pearl Jam show or in a song like that. But I wanted to mention that because it's such an interesting effect, and also allows you to basically recycle and reverse your guitar signal, and then that thing will start to go backtracks on that.
To your deathbed, and I'll stand over your grave till I'm sure that you're dead.
Now, Masters of War going into I'm a Patriot, like the immediate transition and the juxtaposition of what those two songs were, it felt like no matter what, you needed a jolt of energy right after Masters of War. And then Patriot comes in, and I think most people know Patriot as kind of starting off slow and then getting into the fast part, or the acoustic version, or maybe the weird riot act version, but it doesn't feel like the strictly fast version of I'm a Patriot has been played a whole lot. But they bring it out here, and they're absolutely lit up. This was excellent. I don't think that the version itself was one of the best performances. I think in some places it felt a little off, but the energy that followed up on Masters of War was just perfect for that moment. It got everybody going in my section.
After a big moment in Masters of War, when like you've built up all this tension, there's this like energy in the building. You need to like let that go. And Patriot is like super fast, and you can tell that it's into it too. Like there's a couple of close-ups on him where he's sweating and his eyes are closed and he's really letting it go. So completely in the moment there. Yeah, cool to get these in the main set too. You know, right before you get to the big moment at the end of the set.
It's a 19-song main set, and it's like a hard 19. It's not like Lucan was thrown in there or anything. Like, these are legit full 19 songs. I believe it was around an hour and 35 minutes, which is pretty chunky for a main set. And gotta love it. So Porch is going to finish out your main set, and it really feels like since Black, the energy in that building shifted so many times, and after Patriot, you wanted to continue that excitement. Porch was perfect for that. Ed is going down to the bottom. Of course, he's doing his thing, singing on top of the crowd. And the sparks just kept flying. Like, Mike sounds incredible. But I think one of the things that I noticed was that during the entirety of the show, for the most part, it felt like Ed truly seemed starstruck about playing there. Kind of like, oh, wow, this is it. We're playing in Fenway. And by this point, I think it got into his head that I was like, yeah, you made it, you know? Like, the little kid inside of you doesn't need to whisper in your ear anymore. Like, you did it.
Porch is definitely one of the showstoppers. I thought of this. I love what Jeff is doing, just driving that whole thing. And there's a couple of times where they kind of catch a melody and like switch it up and go into a different little melodic thing for a few measures and then go back and like, yeah, had the energy of some of those like early mid-90s versions.
Javier is back, and he wants to talk about guitars, but not McCready, not even Stone. He's going to talk about Ed.
What the fuck is this world running to blame? Leave a mess and we start. Curling your voice one last time. Dead in my fingers go. Be my time by you. Would you hit me? Would you hit me?
I don't know if you guys noticed, but this version of Porch is a little bit different. So Ed starts full on in your face, blasting an overdrive through his guitar, which is kind of weird, and it's a pretty unique feature, and that's why immediately caught my attention. So Ed historically has been well known to be the most minimalistic players out of the three, right? But he can still get some fuzz, a little bit of hair behind the amps. I'm pretty sure that he just runs them right at the edge of breakup. Fender Basements and Fender Tweed Deluxe high-powered twins. That's what he runs in the back, if you didn't know that. And then that mighty P90 Telecaster Supermoto that he has been using for a long time. But in this version, like, you can really hear like he just steps on something and the guitar is fully driven, and like it makes the version of the song so intense. I know that there is a pedal that at some point he was using that he had two label marks, and one of them it was Soup. The other one I can never like read it very like clearly, but I'm pretty sure that probably that was the overdrive that he was selecting. The Soup one is sometimes, I think that there was a tour where he was using a little bit more like a chorus effect, and he will engage that with the soup side. But yeah, a super intense version. He made it right in your face from the start on the get-go. And the other interesting part about this is just like, I'm never gonna be vocal enough to tell you how amazing that guitar player in that band named Stone Gossard is. Like, when the solo starts, when the solo kicks in, it's kind of like he opens up the song by basically not playing or playing something absolutely minimal. But then when he gets in with Matt, oh boy, it's just like, strap your seatbelts because they're going to go for a ride. What a jam they got in this version. But yeah, my focal point, it was just like how intense the song was made by just Ed just choosing to go full drive with that guitar and make it a little bit more dirty so you can get more punch right from the beginning. So yeah, hope you like the comments of this week, guys.
All right, Javier, thank you. We will see you back next week. Going to a 90s show next week, so always good to hear you go back to the old school stuff. And look at us. We're at the encore break, so let's pause for station identification, talk about a couple of things, thank a couple of people off the top. Let's thank Brandon. Brandon, I think, dropped on Patreon for a little bit, but he just joined back up, so thanks, Brandon, and hope he's doing well. Brandon was the host of the Better Band podcast, and hopefully at some point he can finish that up. And a lot of people here that listen to this podcast listen to his podcast as well, and I think he still has it up on Substack. So if you want to listen to his stuff, then seek him out.
Yeah, I think he released an episode a little while ago, and shout out to that. Brendan's Substack is great. Everybody should go subscribe to it. He does great stuff over there.
And also a big shout out to Oscar Pecan. Thank you for joining, Oscar. And Oscar actually left us a comment on YouTube. Yes, people, we have a YouTube channel. Did you know that? Yeah, it's just the podcast.
We got to get Javier on that YouTube channel.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, that's essentially what he's doing for Gear Garage, but yeah, maybe we'll change it up and do some Dark Matters.
Yeah.
We'll think about that. But Oscar joined on the Giggle Egg tier, and he left a comment and saying, hey, listen to you guys. I love you guys. And I want to know how to join your Patreon. So thankfully he's here. Thank you for doing that. Awesome. And we hope that he's enjoying all of the benefits that you get from Patreon. Now I'll go through the little spiel. Now is a great time to join because we're going to be doing instant reaction episodes in about a 2 months time. That's right. When this comes out, this is 2 months away from the Vancouver shows. So it's important for us to get all that content out for you guys because I know that you're all seeking it. So if that's something that you're interested in, now is a good time. Take 2 months, listen to some of the content, catch up, and listen to some of the Evolution episodes, some of the 1991, 1992 episodes that we have posted, or even some British Cool shows because we've done all of those, and some of the late night series. So there is no lack of content over on Patreon if you are interested in listening to more of us. But right now, it is tour time. That means we can use as much funding as humanly possible. So please think about us. It could be $1 a month, whatever it takes. It is a huge help to what we're doing. So you can join for $1 a month on the bonus leg tier. You can join the Giggle Egg tier for $5 a month, which gets you an episode request, everybody. And going through some of the schedule, I think that at this point, for all the requests we have, we're going to get real close to maybe getting them done this year. I don't quote me on that, but I think we'll have a lot more than we usually do, and hopefully not a lot left over for next year so that more people that join get to their request quicker, which is great. And then even some of you that have been here for a while might get a chance at another request. So keep that in mind as we go on here. $5 Giggle Leg tier will get you that. The $10 Horizon Leg tier is going to get you that, and also a profile episode of your choosing. And once we get the merch situation figured out, I need to hear back from t-shirt people, then there's going to be an exclusive t-shirt that is going to go for the Horizon Leg patrons. So keep that in mind. If you want to help the show, contribute a little bit, go to patreon.com/liveonforlegs, and you get to see all the content there. Just look at it for a second, take it all in, then you can decide, hey, maybe I want to throw $1 their way. Maybe they deserve it. Maybe they don't. Or you can go and download the Patreon app, search for Live on Four Legs and dig through that way. Or you can go to liveonfourlegs.com, which is very, very important to the tour as well, as the Concertpedia articles are going to come up after every single show. You can check that out, and you can also go and click the Become a Patron button right from any page on the site. Now, of course, all of you know that, as I mentioned before, we are doing the instant reaction episodes, and we can use as much help as humanly possible on them. We're looking for people at every show, at least the shows that we're not going to be attending, to help put it together. And that kind of consists of finding a spot on site, keeping in touch with me and letting me know how things are going, joining our Discord to make sure that we're recording with you and making sure everything is okay out there audio-wise and everything like that, and gathering people together. We want it to be bigger this year. Last year was really good, and last year felt really big, but the one thing that kind of kept it was that people didn't seem to know what we were doing when we were all just kind of huddled around a phone. It didn't feel like there was an episode going on. It didn't feel like there was a recording. So hopefully this year we're going to make it more apparent and give it that feel a little more, so that people can see the flag, see the logo, and be like, hey, what are you doing? Okay, I want to jump in on this. And I want to get more of the pulse of the people for this one as much as humanly possible, you guys. So keep that in mind. It would be wonderful if you stepped in and decided I want to help out a little bit, because it's just going to make things smooth for us. Maybe at the end of it, we'll hook you up with something real cool as a thank you for that. But that's really, really important to us this year. But we're looking for that. If you are interested, please contact me on social media. You know how to find me. Or just email liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com and reach out to us that way, and we could talk about this further. And even if you don't want to run point, if you just want to be there for an episode recording, that's fine too. You can absolutely come. We encourage it. More people, better. That's what we always think. That's all we got for that. Let's get back into the show and back to the rock. So at this point, Ed, of course, is coming up with more baseball puns. This thing might go into extra innings tonight, so we're going to make sure we're walking out of here with a victory. And he puts on a Red Sox hat, says, I'll wear this the next time I'm at Wrigley.
Reluctantly, he puts it on. He's not real happy about it.
I guess because the dig of the Cubs before, but I mean,
Yeah,
he said
yeah.
that Red Sox were his AL team. He doesn't have it on for very long. I believe one of the nights he put on a jersey and then took it off and put it on the amps. I can't remember what night it was. But here's the story that I think you take out of this, and this was kind of retold in 2018 too, but it's important, and it kind of goes along, I guess, the story of Ed and who he is as a human being and who he is as a baseball fan. So he says, I went through an old shoebox and found a couple of pictures, and they're putting Polaroids out on the screen. The caption on the Polaroid will say what location that the show is in, and as you guys know and seen before, after a lot of shows and very, very early on, especially 1991, 1992, he would take a Polaroid of the crowd and then keep that. And those are all of the Polaroids. So it's cool kind of seeing that when you only see Ed's point of view when he's doing it. So he talks about, like, yeah, in Seattle, we memorized people's names and the crowd because it was so intimate. We're seeing pictures of Seattle. We're seeing pictures of New York City. We're seeing pictures of Rhode Island. Dobbs and Philly, of course, that's another one that's pretty important. And then he talks about the first time playing in Boston in a club called Axis. And he says, well, there's no picture from that night because there's a reason for it. Security took out a guy during the opening band called Venus Beads, and he took him onto the sidewalk, shoved his face into the pavement, had his knee on his back. So while this was going on, I took 2 Polaroids. The other security guy got all big and tough, didn't really like that, and said, give me the fucking pictures. He grabbed them from me and went to tear them up in my face. Sometimes people, come on, use your noggin. I don't know if you've ever tried tearing up a Polaroid, but big giant guy was emasculated by this little Polaroid that he couldn't tear. So we just took his pictures, and then the next morning, they stayed at Howard Johnson, and it was the All-Star break. So there was really no way of getting into Fenway unless you did it the illegal way. So he talks about climbing the fence, hiding behind boxes and crates, making sure nobody saw him, running through corridors and upstairs. And then he shows the 2 Polaroids that he took that day of the park and said, yeah, I had to get in. It was a live stream then. And if you go from that 25 years ago to where we're sitting right now with all you people here, it's mind blowing, and we can't thank you enough. Now that's a story and a half. I always love that story because, again, it's connecting the band to baseball.
It's one of the best. And I mean, what would you give to spend a day going through those shoe boxes that he has? I mean, my goodness. Like we said, we did a bunch of those 91, 92 shows, and you see him at the end bring out the camera, and like to know that he's kept all those and like has them like organized. He can go back and look at the club and the date and see the fans there, like the people at those shows up at the front. Yeah, just to see those, and like, yeah, it just made me think like, what else does he have that we don't know about? Like, I want to know everything that's in the shoebox. I know when they did the box sets, you get a copy of the notebook and everything, and some of that stuff is in there. But man, I would just love to spend a day just going through the archives that they have and just to see everything that they've kept throughout all these years.
Well, if that wasn't a special enough moment, then the transition here is going to be enough to have you captivated. This is, for both of these songs that are going to be back to back, the second and last time that they would ever play them at a Pearl Jam show. It's going to be Strangest Tribe first.
It's 5 below. In every day, the wind eddies, sideways snow. Is there has yet to show? Oh, follow the ageless tide, follow the angled line, follow the strangest tribe.
Overall, Strangest Tribe Into Society was a total just 180 from what I expected them to do. Strangest Tribe was probably one of the last songs that you would ever expect them to play. They had done it once at that point in Oslo, but that's so far away that you kind of remember the moment, but they haven't played it in a prominent American place yet, so you don't have something big like this. And I remember, like, I had a huge reaction. I was like, holy crap, we got Strangest Tribe.
There's someone in the crowd that just starts screaming in the background as the song is starting. Yeah.
I don't blame them. I was confused and excited at the same time. And then I was kind of looking around in my section. This is going back to what I was saying before about the casuals and all that. And I was looking for people. I was like, Strangest Tribe? Anyone? And then one guy looked like in the row behind us and a couple people down, he was like, what? And I high-fived him. So, we were out there, but yeah, it was spread out a little bit. But a real nice nod to the community and kind of bringing things together. Obviously, when you think of Strangest Tribe, written kind of about the crew that follows them around from show to show to show and everything, it's just kind of an homage to all that. And you think big ballpark shows, everybody is there for that, so you are a big tribe. And yeah, I just loved sitting there and witnessing it. It's something that I don't know if we'll ever get again. Maybe we will,
I think we will. They've got one more in them.
but you can't predict that. That's
Oh,
the thing.
sure. Oh, yeah. It's something that if you're talking with people before the show and someone says, "Oh, I'm hoping to get Stranger's Tribe," everyone will just laugh and be like, "Yeah, right. Keep dreaming. You're never gonna get Stranger's Tribe." But the story before and like not a big fanfare of it. It comes out very quiet and very sparse. Yeah, super cool. And I mean, it's one of my kind of favorite songs. I like when Pearl Jam gets weird, and this is kind of one of the weirder, moodier songs to get. I mean, I would absolutely love to hear it someday. I would freak the fuck out. But to have him acknowledge it afterwards and be like, "Oh, you've been a great tribe," to
Yeah.
give it like legitimacy to that theory that people have calling themselves that and everything. That is super special and just gave the song a whole new meaning and a whole new life for people. I mean, people had been, I think, kind of unofficially saying that, but it really took off after this.
Then they get into Society, and it's another holy shit moment because
Mhm.
when he's getting into the song and just kind of strumming those chords out a little bit, we're so used to that hum in the beginning. And he doesn't do that at all. And I think I take that away from the song so much more than its actual rhythm when it gets in, because it's just like a really sweet humming melody that really invites you into this song. So he doesn't do that, and I'm very confused. I don't recognize it until he starts singing the song, and then I freak out, of course. But man, to have those two back to back, to get those performances like this, they just went all out to do something real special. And Society, they haven't played it since. If they're going to play Into the Wild, it's usually setting forth. As we talked about a couple weeks ago, they did play Rise at that show that you were at. But this was a shocker and a lot of fun just kind of singing along and experiencing.
When you want more than you have, you think you need. When you think more than you want, your thoughts begin to bleed. I think I need a bigger place. It's when you have more than you think, you need more space. Society, you're crazy breed. Hope you're not lonely without me. Society, crazy indeed. Hope you're not lonely without me.
What a bonkers way to start an encore, too. Like, what is going to happen here? Like, what is going on with these two songs to start an encore? You got to be thinking, like, what is going to be next?
It literally could have been anything.
Yeah. I don't think they followed it up with the same type of song. The encore does a little bit of a 180 here, but leading up to it, I don't know if they've ever done a more rare two-song opening to an encore.
Probably not. And some of those 2013 shows have a little something, but not like this.
Yeah,
at
two
all.
songs that have been played combined 4 times. Doesn't get much rarer than that.
That's not a stat that you need to go dig for, folks.
Yeah.
Just Breathe and Sleeping by Myself. I think that these are interesting from the standpoint that Just Breathe is a song about togetherness, and then Sleeping by Myself is about kind of being apart. So I wonder if that was done for a purpose or not, but just an interesting juxtaposition and something to kind of mention. But look, we talked about Just Breathe last week, guys. And in 2013, they weren't doing it with Jeff. And I think that going back, that might have been the end to that, because we don't get it here either.
Yeah.
And it's so disappointing because this is a really decent song to go through the evolution of. And it feels like when we go through this, it just kind of stops evolving. It stops turning into something because it loses such a key element that makes it special.
And like I get it if you're gonna come out and start an encore with it, have Ed come out and do it solo, that makes more sense. But the band was already on stage. They were already sitting down, and then they leave for this song, and then they're going to come back. It's like, don't leave, just stay and play the song. Like, makes no sense to me. But this is where we're going to start getting some cuts too. I don't know if you saw Parachutes was originally supposed to
Oh
be in
yeah.
between Just Breathe and Sleeping by Myself, which would have been very cool. But
Oh yeah. It would have
yeah,
felt like a huge shock after Strangest Tribe in Society too.
for real. But yeah, I mean, this part of the encore, I think this is where you start to lose me a little bit. I listened to this, like, I almost went and took a bathroom break during Sleeping by Myself when I was watching this video. I mean, like, you're starting to lose me here. They didn't follow up with the promise of Strangest Tribe in Society.
Well, got to mention here for Sleeping by Myself that Ed shouts out, "I need a uke up on the stage." And out comes Uke, Kevin Youkilis, Red Sox fan favorite that won a couple World Series with them. He has my favorite batting stance of all time. It looks like he's playing a violin. It's just one of my favorite things. I loved watching him when he played. The Greek god of walks. He's just a really fun player. And yeah, they both do the batting stance, which is awesome. It's a lot of fun.
But like, this is what I was, you contrast this with Arroyo, who came out with Super Cool, and like, he just can't help himself. Red Sox news, like doing the whole meathead, like, hey, I'm in front of a crowd. Let me get them all pumped up. Do the thing that I do. Act like you've been there. That's not really the time for that. But crowd loves him. It's their guy, so I get it.
Yeah, Sleeping by Myself. Look, that's the lead into that, so it gets you a little bit more excited to hear that. And I think that was the first time that I ever heard it. So I was kind of like, okay, check. Got that song. So that's like 3 out of 4 songs there that are added to the trophy list, I suppose. But we get the reprise for Life Wasted, and then the Wasted for Life Wasted, and then State of Love and Trust all in a row here. What's interesting about the reprise is that Ed starts singing Don't Give Up over and over and over again in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I like this a lot more than when he talks for a while about something, like give it like a little improv thing, add some extra lyrics to it. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, something a little different. I'm always in for something a little different. So Life Wasted, I think it's a good energetic rocker. Yeah, this is like standard fare for a Fenway ballpark show or any ballpark show. Yeah, State of Love and Trust, I was really kind of down on. It's down tuned, and
it doesn't sound good.
It doesn't feel like State of Love and Trust at all. It doesn't have that bite that it usually does, and when they down tune it, I wonder if that unfamiliarity makes it so they can't really punch it. And yeah, it feels like maybe it's a little distracting to Ed too, because he's kind of walking across the stage. It seems like he's trying to distract himself, or
he drinks a beer from someone in the crowd at one point.
Yeah, and then he gets up on the amp and nearly stumbles as it goes down.
Yeah, it didn't sound full. It didn't sound like Stone was at his best on this one. It didn't sound like he had the full power that State usually has on it.
Yeah, don't know what happened there.
Missing something,
Yeah, I fully agree with that. But, we've heard better State of Love and Trust before, and I'm sure we'll get one in the not-so-distant future. But right now, Ed is going to get into Comfortably Numb, saying that we borrowed a song from a friend named Roger. We did it together at a benefit for Hurricane Sandy, and we thought it would be nice to play it outdoors where you might be tripping balls. So, Comfortably Numb is interesting, and I remember I kind of mentioned it before that somebody had a picture of the set list on their phone, and he was like, you want to see it? You want to see it? I'm like, no, not really. Show me what the first 2 songs were, and that's it. And then he kind of spoiled it. He's like, oh, we're getting Pink Floyd. I'm like, all right, well, tell me what the Pink Floyd song is. And he's like, Comfortably Numb. And I said at the time, I'm like, I don't really remember the band doing this in full. Like, obviously, I remember the Hurricane Sandy performance with Roger Waters. I love that. That was great. I loved that whole entire night. But it kind of shocked me to see that they had played it 13 times at that point, because it felt like this was more for after this era than it was for before. But I think that made it feel kind of fresh, because I had seen Mother before, so it made it feel like Comfortably Numb. At least, you're getting a great classic rock song. It's not something that I look forward to at shows nowadays, but like the first time you're getting it, it does feel a little bit special, because it is one of those songs that you play it into the universe and it's just going to soar. So yeah, it was a fine moment.
I mean, this is basically 2016 and 2018, and then only one time since then, which, I mean, I'm on the record as being fine with. This is not my favorite cover that they do, so I'm happy if it doesn't come back. But yeah, I got to see it twice, and like, yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. When Pearl Jam does like hits of the 70s, that's not my favorite.
We're about to get into another hit in the 70s very soon.
Not gonna be the last one.
So Corduroy is gonna finish the set, and I got kind of like a funny little story for this. So, you know, when you're listening to a show and you're there and you're just kind of taking it all in, sometimes in your head, you're like, okay, maybe they'll do this next. Like this can transition into this and this sounds good here. Or maybe you're going back to thinking some of the early stuff like, oh, well, they didn't play Animal early on, or they didn't play Hail Hail early on. And I was doing none of that at the show, mainly because I was drinking. So that was kind of off my mind. But Corduroy to finish an encore blew my mind. I fucking love this. I went insane because I didn't even think that was a possibility. So you hear those opening chords, and you're like, oh shit, we're getting down to time. Is this really closing out the encore? You guys, they got to do this more often. It was so much fun being in the crowd for this. They just captured that energy so perfectly with the call and response, and when the song keeps building, and it was a great version. And I think it's definitely elevated by its placement in the set. They have to do it more in this spot. They really do. Just change it up a little bit. It's gonna get a different reaction. I know it's a great one for the beginning, but fuck, this was so much fun at the show. I really love this Corduroy.
Yeah, they could definitely do it later and give it a different feel, but this was an add-on too. It was supposed to be Unthought Known into Lightning Bolt.
That would have been really weird.
Yeah, two songs that sound very, very similar. But yeah, I mean, Ed's having fun with it, playing around with the call and response, goes really low, kind of having some fun with it.
Got any more innings in you? We need to get a relief pitcher? What do you got?
But there's a absolutely all-time Matt Cameron Filthy Phil on this right before the end. Just completely goes balls out for 2 seconds on that fill right before it gets in the ending. It's incredible.
Give me more Corduroy in the closer spot, and I will be a very, very happy person. Encore 2, a little bit shorter than the second encore. We only got 4 songs left, and there's only going to be 1 original song. That just happens at ballparks. They play a lot of covers. Sometimes it's going to be songs like this with Draw the Line, that it's on occasion, and they'll probably never do this again. Or sometimes it's like Baba, and it's going to come up often, but it's going to get you the big-time crowd response for being the classic rock, great, legendary song that it is. So, yeah, it doesn't really mention that they're going to do an Aerosmith song. He's just like, hey, how's everything going by Pesky Pole and by the Presidential Suites? And he mentions the Orpheum and some of the garden shows, and then kind of looks back like, okay, what the hell are we playing? And then we get into Draw the Line. Aerosmith is maybe the last band from that era, at least, that I ever would have expected Pearl Jam to cover. It just doesn't seem like there is that connection there. But look, they all lived in the 70s and 80s. They all lived that. Like, that's their youth. Whether or not Aerosmith is being played on their turntable every day is a different story, but they grew up with this, and they're thinking at the time, like, okay, what can we do for Boston that feels big, that feels like we're giving them a hometown special thing? And they decide on this song. And you go 2 years later, and they're going to do Buffalo Tom, inviting him on stage.
Like that a lot better, yeah.
Oh, I did too, absolutely. And I was actually so happy that he came out and did it again on night 2, because I just loved the first performance so much that I was really happy that we got. But like, doing it again the next night, and I get that Tom Hamilton was there, and that's important, but just not one of my favorite things.
Yeah, and I'm not even familiar with the song, and I'm not an Aerosmith fan for sure, but I know their hits, you know. But this is not in their wheelhouse at all. It just sounds weird coming out of them, and like Ed's very obviously again looking down and reading the lyrics on it, and like
he's also not being himself. He's also feels like he's trying to be Steven Tyler, which
and like don't do that. Like that's not something you want to do. Pearl Jam was like a reaction to that. Like I remember, being in like 88, 89 when Aerosmith had kind of their rebirth and their comeback. A lot of my friends like being in school were into that stuff and had that record, and like, no, that's the stuff that this music is supposed to be against. That's the stuff that this was reacting to. It just sounded weird coming out of them, and I don't like it.
Yeah, one time I can handle, but the 2 times I was just like, all right,
and
not my thing.
It'll never come back. They'll never ever do it again. So,
look, I hope this year they bring out somebody from the Cars and they do 2 car songs, because that will make me a happy person.
Bring out Jonathan Richman.
All right, so the final 3 here is going to start with Alive, and it was a fun version. Ed was just super elated. Again, dream come true that he kind of mentioned before, and it just felt special. It felt like the crowd recognized that the band was feeling pretty good out there and had something special in mind, and I feel like everybody just took in the big moment, especially when they turned the house lights up. It's weird because they turn the house lights up in Alive, and we get 3 songs that had house lights. That almost never, ever, ever happens.
They were kind of setting the standard for what the ballpark shows would be. And, there's 40, 50,000 people there. So you got to give them a big ending. Let them have a moment at the end.
We get another rare cover here. Ed goes around the horn and he's like, Stone writes all the songs and he's more handsome than he thinks. Shouts out the Battery and Cameron and Jeff. And Mike throws a no-hitter every time he goes out there. And even after all those years, I don't understand it. That was a funny quote. Then he gives a shout out to Peter Gammons, longtime baseball writer, of course, Boston resident and everything like that. He walks out on stage and waves hi for a minute. And he's like, all right, we're going to try one out. And I can't remember the last time we played it, but we think it's the Orpheum. Now, let's correct Ed for a second. It's actually the Fleet Center in 2004, but it's still Boston. So there was this stretch where they had played it 3 shows in a row in Boston. So that's pretty cool. Like that feels to them probably like a song for the area. Sometimes they get that in mind, like Down, as we mentioned before, being the dedication to Howard Zinn. They end up playing it for a guy named Matthew Plummer, and his dad passed away recently, and you can see this is someone I'm wondering if is close to Ed, because you can see Ed really getting choked up a little bit.
Yeah.
And he said that he and his father didn't agree on much, music-wise and things, but this was one of the songs that he and his dad agreed upon and played together. So that's a nice touch right there for sure. I don't know why. I had no idea that I've Got a Feeling, kind of like Masters of War. I've got a feeling I thought that they were doing more regularly, and I don't know why. Maybe because it just feels so synonymous with their early stuff, because it was on like the Alive single. That
Japanese version of 10 too, yeah.
Yeah. But I took it for granted. And I had to go to the bathroom again. So I was being an idiot with that. And then while the song is playing, obviously I'm hearing things, but I see a merch table. And I'm like, oh shit, that's right. Didn't go to the merch table at all. Didn't get any merch. Let's see what posters they have. So I go through, and the posters, it's not the poster I want. I wanted the player catching the ball at the monster. That was the one that I want. I did get it, and I'll tell that story in a second, but I end up buying the one with the mean looking guy on it with the stripes because that one looked okay, and then I didn't want to go empty-handed at the show, so I needed something. But yeah, I kind of didn't pay attention to the performance as much as I thought because I kind of thought, oh, I mean, they play this enough, right? And not even paying attention to him just saying that he thinks that he didn't play it since the Orpheum. I must have not paid attention, or even at the time, I probably had no fucking clue what the Orpheum was. I was a novice back then, you guys, but yeah, look at me now. It's crazy. This is a show about missed opportunities, and maybe out of all of them, this is the worst. Because I was there, I could have enjoyed it, I could have waited a couple minutes, but I figured that they were going to go alive into Rockin' in the Free World kind of deal, and that I had a little time, but yeah, just kind of watching from the concourse and not thinking much of it, which is the worst part.
Well, yeah, he doesn't do the line about Andy and doesn't do that, but his voice is shot by the end of this too. He cannot hit those notes that John and Paul are hitting in the Beatles version. He has a funny moment. He kind of grabs his junk, to say it politely, and kind of tries to go falsetto, oh, maybe this will help if I. But he can't get it.
Yeah, it's a 357 show delay. There's some big delays here. Masters of War being the other one.
Strangest Tribes 51 is doesn't even seem like anything.
Right, yeah. It's pedestrian compared to these.
Yeah.
So, look, Pearl Jam, if you're out there, because you might be out there, who the hell knows at this point, I could use to see this song again, because why not? And I think the rest of us would like to see it again too, but I think that this is probably better fit for a ballpark than an arena at this point, because it just feels like it has more of that presence.
Yeah, they did it at Wrigley, you got to see it there, and then they did it at one of the home shows in 2018, yeah, so we'll see.
Not one of the 15-minute versions, not Den Haag, but
right.
It did the trick. And then Baba is going to end your night, and yeah, I went back to the seat for Baba and kind of enjoyed the final moment from it. And yeah, just fun. And the crowd was really, really hot for it. Of course, the crowd seemed to be the most hot for the non-Pearl Jam stuff, and that, deep down inside, that hurts.
Right.
Singing Another Brick in the Wall and singing Baba O'Reilly, and I've Got a Feeling, guys, they have songs where you can sing loud on too. Come on. But it goes back to childhood. I get that. It's nostalgia. Yeah. I get that. So
there's a moment in this too near the end. You see Ed runs way off to the side, and you can tell he's gonna come and do a running big finish. And you see him run and leap off the amp, and you see Danny Clinch run out. You see him in his little hat and snap the iconic picture of Ed jumping with all the crowd in the back. He gets that picture here. You see it in the video.
Oh, that's not the iconic photo. That's from Wrigley.
I know, but it's one of them. It's the same shot.
Right. Yeah. So of course, after the show, we walk out, and then there's a merch truck right in front of us. I'm like, all right, shit. My brother's like, okay, I want to get a shirt anyway. So, all right, let's stand on it. And honestly, there weren't a whole lot of people there. Maybe we got there earlier than everybody else, but of course I get up there. They got a big fat stack of posters. And I even asked them, look, I want the monster poster. And I tried to be like, hey, can I trade it? And he's like, yeah, no can do. Once it's off the table, it's off and it's yours. So I got it, and it was something I hung up for a while. It's kind of stowed away at the moment. Just don't have enough space, but yeah, that's the end of that story. Believe it or not. Well, maybe this wouldn't be something that you would think has top moments for me, but it does. So let's get into it. John, kick us off.
All right. I feel bad about doing this, but I got to do it. My number 3 is the Release Long Road opening. Fantastic start. My number 2 is Black, and my number 1 is Masters of War.
I'm going to go here. Corduroy, I'm going to put at number 3. And then number 2, I'm going to do Strangest Tribe. And number 1 is going to be Masters of War for me. Okay.
All right.
Rating time. This could get interesting. It could get ugly.
Yeah.
But let's
Very
see
curious to see what yours is going to be. But
yeah.
I'll start it off. I mean, this is not a perfect show. Encore 1 starts out with a bang, and then I think it leaves a little bit to be desired. A lot of covers, obviously, and that can like throw a show off a little bit. But this is only the second ballpark show ever.
Let's just clarify. It's the second ballpark show that they've headlined because they played PNC Park and a couple other places.
Fair. But like, yeah, the iconic ballpark shows that we know from Pearl Jam at this point. But yeah, I can't go super high on this one. I'm going to give this one 7.5.
All right. I mean, the experience is like a 1.5, I guess. Partially. But really overall, like, come on, you got to do better than that, right? I listened back to it and, the first 5-6 songs that like I really wasn't around for, like I never really listened to that part. I haven't really listened to the show. Maybe like once or twice a while ago, maybe when it first came out on boot, I took it in, but I never really did the deep dive on it, and it gave me some good memories going back. Of course, like Strangest Tribe and Masters of War, I got really excited for the Corduroy Encore. Love that, but it's not the best ballpark show. I definitely liked Night 2 much better, and it definitely docks some points from my experience, but I don't want to get overly negative on it. I don't want to go too low. I'm going to try and put my own experience aside a little bit. And I think the best that I can do seeing that is that I can give it a 7, which might seem generous.
It sounded like you were going to say 6.
I mean, it could be, but I don't know. Like, if I was listening to the show and the whole time I'd be like, damn, I was such an idiot. I was such an idiot for doing that. I don't really think that. It's part of my story, and that's it. I'm not going to dwell on it anymore after this. Like, this is over.
We've exercised the demons, guys.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And I kind of did a couple of years ago, too, when this came up. I told the whole story on social media, but nobody remembers that, of course. So, yeah, after this point, who cares? So what? I'll never do it again. If I do, you won't hear the end of it. Let's put it that way.
Something's gone terribly wrong.
Maybe cut off the podcast at that point. All right, you guys. So digging into the month of March is kind of special, actually, because we're looking back at the past, as we do every week, of course. We're also looking into the future. We might get some singles this month. We might hear some new songs. I would honestly expect it to happen. Maybe by this point.
So ready for a new song. So ready for another new song.
Absolutely. I've listened to Dark Matter minimally this week, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
As like last 2 weeks, a lot, like 3-4 times a day. And this week, do some deprogrammed research and everything like that, but a little bit less on Dark Matter. Yeah, I'm ready for a new one. So what we're going to do, and focusing on anniversaries, as we always love to do, is that this is the 30th anniversary of the 1994 Versus Tour. So we get a little excited about that. And it's going to be interesting to talk about some of these shows and some of what was going on through the band. Because if you guys were listening in back in November, December, we were doing the 1993 run and kind of talking about how that time really reflected on a band in a certain way, whether it was positive or negative, getting the press and everything like that. And 1994 felt just chaotic when it came to everything outside of what was going on stage. And the show that we're going to kick it off with is actually going to be the Pensacola show that took place early in that tour, because it's an important one. That was a benefit and a pro-choice rally. And I think it's one of the big stories to take away from that tour year. So we're going to start off with that. We're not going to do every single week, it being 1994. We're going to switch off here and there in spots, but we're going to kick it off with a special one in Pensacola for next week. All right, guys, let's say goodbye and say thank you for anybody that has been subscribing and been listening to this podcast. We appreciate you getting entertained by our voices, I suppose, and maybe a little of our knowledge. Who knows? But if you aren't subscribed, the subscription would help a lot. It would help the visibility and kind of kick in with the algorithm. And you can do that on Spotify, or you can do that on Apple Podcasts, or like mentioned before, you can do that on YouTube if you'd like. YouTube.com/live on 4 legs. I don't know if that link is going to work, but maybe try it out. If it doesn't, then I owe you a soda or something. I don't know. But you can subscribe on any of those platforms and listen, and any subscription, anything is truly helpful at this point. And from there, if you want to leave a rating for us, let us know how we're doing. We certainly would love a 5-star rating from you guys. We think we deserve it, of course. And on Apple Podcast, along with the 5-star rating, if you want to leave us a comment there, let the people know what you're going to get from listening to us. It'll be super, super helpful. We haven't gotten a rating in a very long time, so I'm excited to see the next person that pops up that gives us a little rating. That should be a nice little boost of energy right there. So that's about it from there. This may be the end. We're here, but not for much longer, and although we may be parting ways, miss you already, miss you always. Arrivederci to this one, and to all of the exercise demons, you gone. And next week, we pick up at a different spot in Pearl Jam history. It's going to be our first 90s show of 2024. Don't miss it. See you on the pod.
You've been a great tribe.
I've got a feeling, I'm feeling